this video, I want to look at relationship through the lens of investment. And one of the great teachers we have in the world is money. And the reason for it is its cleanness and its honesty. People will spend their money where their value is, what they value. And sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's looking good, sometimes it's giving away. But the way that we spend our money tells us a lot about what we value, as does the way that we spend our time. So, looking through the lens of money, we can learn some things about relationship. Just like when we look at nature. Nature is a very honest representation of many sustainable principles. So I was thinking about the way that in a relationship, like a portfolio or a nest egg, you have the principal, you have the savings, the balance kind of in the checking account, and you have the interest. And very much like a generous bank account, when you have a relationship that's deeply and kind of intensively invested in, you can float, should you wish, on the interest. But what I want to invite you to consider in a daily, weekly, yearly analysis is the capital of the relationship. So what does that consist of? How much trust? How much both people consider that the relationship is bringing each other over and beyond costs? So there's a time cost, and there's a money cost, and there's an emotional cost, and there's a mental cost, and there's a physical body cost to every relationship. Every relationship involves connecting and doing things in time and space, which dovetails back to money in some way. Because if you're not working, it's because you're choosing not to work. And you could be working, and you could be making money. And so in spending time in the relationship, there's a cost in time, in money, in space, in risk, in effort. And the question is it sustainable? So if you have an interaction with someone and let's say you email back and forth about getting together, there's an immediate impact on our lives. Does your excitement go up, or does your anxiety go up? Anxiety, like, ooh, that's going to be tight on that day. I hope I finish that appointment on time. So immediately, anxiety could go up, in which case the cost of the relationship is going up. Then the body is holding that anxiety. If you need to drive somewhere to meet the person, there's time where, there's effort, there's cost on the car. There's cost in maybe racing to be on time. There's risk and anticipation. Is this going to pay off beautifully or not? And so there's a cost. And And that cost is, of course, offset in a very subjective way to how much value you bring one another. And this is actually not a bad place, particularly for couples, to do some math around this, because here's how it can work. For example, let's say you have a button or a sunburn. A button is, I hate talking about my mom, you brought up my mom again. So let's say every time that button gets pressed, there's a 20% withdrawal in the value of the interaction. Every time you give me a slap on that shoulder, I have sunburn. There's a 50% withdrawal. And so the equity in the relationship is going up or down. And one of the biggest reasons that relationships end or go bankrupt is there's not enough time, effort, and money, and just awareness spent on gathering data. What brings the value down? What brings it up? And throughout the ups and downs of relationships, there are going to be moments when you need to draw heavily on the trust, on the well-being, on the inconvenience, on the emotional strain of yourself and your partner in order to stay together. Because if you start to draw down at that moment, let's say your best friend is in hospital and you need to cancel a really important date and you need to renege on a commitment for you to show up over here. What's your standing in the relationship? Is there a few $100,000 in the bank, relatively speaking, metaphorically speaking, and you're drawing out $50,000? And your partner's saying, oh, this absolutely sucks. But we've got something pretty great and our balance is good. And so I'm going to allow and support you to make that withdrawal. And not only that, I'm going to up it. I'm going to come over and help you with that. And in that situation, increase the value of me to you, maybe significantly. And the reason that I want to draw attention to this is that if the relationship is happening, it's happening for one of three reasons. One or both of you is borrowing from the future. They're saying something like this: this is not what I want. I'm not at all comfortable right now. But I think in a couple of years, this man or woman is going to be closer to what I want. And I think that they're going to show up for me in this way. So I'm going to go along with this now. So I'm borrowing in the future. I'm going into the future. I'm making a promise, often not without talking about it. I'm taking out a loan, and the relationship is coasting along on credit. And there's a lot of relationships, and this is where bitterness and betrayal comes in, because I make a promise about what you're going to pay back in the future, and you don't keep that promise. The promise I may not have told you about, or the promise you may have gone along. And it's a little bit like this. I had a client recently, and it was the end of the day, and she was 30, 40 feet away, and she yelled out, "How about this?" And I said, sure. And that was the end of the conversation. And then she acted on that, and she bought stuff, and then she said, okay, Dane, now it's your time to do all of this. And I said, okay, there'll be a $350 charge. And she said, well, wait a minute, you didn't tell me that. And it's like, yeah, you were walking away. I figured you knew if you were asking for something completely new and not in our contract. I figured you knew there would be a charge. I'm telling you before I'm doing the work. And you know, this isn't in our contract. And I figured if you wanted to know how much it would cost before moving on with that, you would, you know, not yell from 30 feet away as you're walking away from me. You'd come towards me and you'd ask. And, you know, and she said, no. It was your job to come and tell me right then how much it would cost. And I'm saying, I agreed with you, it was a good idea. You just went and acted on it. It was a little awkward. I could have run after you, but I was busy doing something at that moment, and then off you went. And so I could have gone after, just to be absolutely certain. You could have asked me right here as where we could dialogue and may I discuss something, and you could have asked me, and or you could just, you know, own up the maturity that if you're requesting something new, not in the contract, that you would expect, not that you're going to take from me, but you're going to pay for it. But these are things, you know, this is in a business relationship, but in a romantic relationship, that kind of conversation happens all the time. You know, you're busy reading the newspaper, you're reading a book, your partner walks by. Do you mind helping out so-and-so in a couple of months? And it's like, yeah, whatever. And then it comes time and it's like, well, I'm busy working right now and I don't mind helping on a Saturday afternoon when convenient, but I'm not going to come home early to do this. And we just didn't talk about it. And so these are the kinds of things, or do you want to have kids? Yes. Okay, so let's have kids. Well, I want to have kids with someone that we've established this level of rapport with that we haven't established. Meaning it's like I haven't reached the certainty point that we are going to be around for 18 years and that's going to boost both of our well-being more than not. So yes, I'm interested and open in having children, but there's a lot of nuance and complexity to that decision. You know, when I'm madly in love with a woman who I see is a good mother and I can see will make her happy to have the children, and I can see that she has the time, and I can see that we have the money, and I can see that we are steadily building capital rather than taking out loans against one another, that we're building a resource. In that situation, I'd like to have children. We've got about 40% of that right now. So we can build that, but my goal is not, it's not like I don't want to build it to have children. I want to have children with someone who wants to build this. Do you want to build this? Because we haven't in this last 18 months. We haven't in this last 2 or 3 years. We've built 40% of that. And I don't want to push you. And so that's the nuance. It's like, well, I wouldn't have been wasting my time with you. I wouldn't be wasting my time with you if I thought we wouldn't have children. And yeah, and I wouldn't have said, I want to have children no matter what. You know, let's have a conversation, not a newspaper kind of musing. And this is the way that we can inadvertently keep a relationship that's losing equity, meaning both people, for whatever reason, often it's trauma. Often there's these little things that just hurt and create anxiety and create fear and create disappointment and frustration, and they happen and they happen and they happen, and the relationship equity goes down rapidly. But it goes down much faster than you realize because there's not the communication around what the withdrawal level is. So we all know what $1 is. And if you take $1, you know that I have $1 less. But if you take a slap on the back or a, nah, I'm too tired to have sex, you don't know what the impact is. For me, it could be a 10 out of 10 negative impact. For you, it's a 2. If you project your 2 onto me and say, yeah, I did that, but I did 2 10s over here. Like I did this and I did this, and that's 2 10s. And I've only withdrawn 4, great sexual dates at the last minute. I've only withdrawn 4. So you should still have 12 in equity there. And it's like, no, you don't understand. Every one of those was a 10. You did give me 2 10s here. Every one of those was a 10. And we're now 20 in debt because you gave me 20. You made 40 in withdrawals. You didn't check with me, and that hurts a bit. You didn't ask, what's the impact? And you didn't want to listen when I tried to talk about it. And you brushed me off, and I was left alone. And so I'm feeling quite insecure and on the edge here. I'm not solidly in this with you. I'm kind of like, how many hits am I going to keep having to take to stay bonded with you? Versus taking control of my own life again. And so what I want to talk about are some of the ways that we can build equity in a relationship. And the purpose of this is not to get obsessive with the numbers. That's not the goal. It's not about the numbers. It's about the love that one can create with an understanding of impact. So what's equity? Learning what really matters to your partner and how much. Building trust that you're not going to spend that capital lightly. Regularly doing what you can to build equity, to do the things that make her or him feel deeply loved, honored, appreciated, and celebrated. These are the equity investments. There's also equity in different areas. So one of the things that I look at is, are you increasing the flexibility and power of the relationship? So if I'm building a relationship with film, which is something I've been doing the last couple of months, is my power to create film stronger today than it was 3 months ago? And the answer is yes. I have 2 cameras instead of 1. I have an extra tripod, and I have 3 200 gigabyte SD cards. So that's a $600 plus a couple of hours of thought and research in increasing the equity in this relationship with film, which means that for the next X number of years, I will be able to make more films easier. And then there was some microphone and this and that. And then I've got equity also built in the relationship with my assistant, who is now turning these films more and more fluidly into YouTube videos. And another wave of investment would be to actually do some outreach and find more people who might be interested in these topics. And so that's all investment in the project of film. Now, investment in the project of the relationship is, if communication is important, for example, a backup battery, so your cell phone is always charged. Now, if you both have 2 or 3 backup batteries, one in the car, one in here, and they're always charging and stuff, now you've just increased the investment in the communication. If you build a culture consciously where you say, you know, I'd really like a relationship with complete transparency. So I want to start a daily ritual of sharing some of my more vulnerable thoughts in an email with you. And I'm going to do it in an email to create fluidity, because, you know, I may be too tired by the time you get into bed to share that then. So the timing is off, but the desire is there. So we're simpatico on desire, we're not on time. But I'm going to write about my feelings when I'm fresh in the morning and you're at work. And you're going to read my feelings when it's convenient for you in the evening when you get home. When I'm sleeping, you're going to read that and you're going to come in attuned to my feelings. So let's create a ritual and invest in this ritual. We're going to spend 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes a day in this ritual of learning. Let's create a ritual of appreciation. Let's make, you know, peak experience date nights, like once a month. Let's try and have a complete peak experience that we've never done, that's new, that brings both of us to a high, and that we can bond deeper in that high. Let's create that. So these are investments in the culture and in the equity of the relationship. What else? Any hurt, negative feelings that's creating a drag, I'm going to communicate it and coach you around it. And every weekend we're going to have a list of all the stuff that created some drag. Like, you know, it's really driving me nuts when you're texting while we're watching a movie. It'd be an 8 out of 10 for me if you either took a bathroom break or stayed present with me. Which, on a 1 to 10 scale, how much resistance to that do you have? And it might be like, oh, fine, I'll just take a bathroom break, but I can't enjoy the movie if I think my boss might be texting me at that time. So I'm going to do vibrate, bathroom. Okay, zipped. We've just moved a source of friction, a source of drag away from our vehicle. So we move faster. And every week, it's part of what Stephen Covey talked about, sharpening the saw, so that next week our relationship goes forward smoother with less drag. And then so reducing drag, taking away sore spots, education, increasing the joy and the direct deposits. And a great way to do that is to challenge one another and say, I want a list from you of things I could do that if I did them would be absolute 10s. For example, my sweetheart, she just, I was had a difficult day. She said, I feel really bad and I don't know what to do, and I'm feeling guilty because I want to do something for you, and I have no idea what to do, and so I'm just feeling bad. And I said, okay, I haven't done my job. Let me tell you what you can do. I don't want you feeling guilty. I don't want you feeling bad. If you want to do something, here are 3 things that you could do that would be really high numbers. She's like, yes. She went off and did each of those 3 things and blessed our relationship with equity in a couple of areas. 1, caring. 2, communication and intimacy. 3, generosity. And 4, enthusiasm and follow through. And then the bonus is all those 3 things that she actually did. And what she's really saying is that I'm someone who, when you're hurting, wants to be there and wants to do the thing that will ease your pain. Well, that's, you've got to be pretty obtuse not to notice that, and not to say that's a really valuable person that I want in my life. Because this is someone that's interested in making deposits in our future. Because we're not going to have a future if it's the other way around. If when I'm in pain, you make it worse and I can't deal with it. There's not going to be a future. But I'm in pain and you make it better, and we feel gratitude and closeness, and both of our energy goes up, and we learn and we succeed at that. Like, she's succeeded brilliantly. And then she's a winner. And then I'm a winner for having such a generous winner around me. And we go up, and trust in the future goes up. And interest in being there together in a future in which we do that for one another goes up. So hope goes up. Enthusiasm, imagination. I start to imagining. The more that she does those kind of things, the more I start to imagine we could do this together and this together and this together. And with someone with these qualities, we could connect in this way and this way and this way. So so this brings a level of hope and a buoyancy about the future, not like, I can't put up with that for 10 years, I just can't see myself being able to take another 20 hits like this, because I'm getting 3 hits a month. So that means another 6 months, I'm going to have another 20 hits of this, and I'm going to be broke. This is not working. But what I'm wanting to do in bringing in this financial analogy is a tool for partnering, so that it's not a unilateral one person giving up for a reason the other person doesn't know and thus can't do anything about, and then is surprised that because they really love that person, they want to do something for them, but the person didn't tell them about the hit or how expensive the hit was on their body. Like, oh yeah, I get a headache every time you do that, and I'm just pounding for 3 hours, and it's just miserable. And yeah, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to, be bossy or anything. No, you have to say something. You give them the choice to, you could do it this way and no headache. You've just salvaged the relationship from bankruptcy. It's a little bit like your accountant who doesn't want to tell the owner that every time you work for this client, you lose 20%. The client pays you 20 grand, you have 30 grand in, in that case, you have 30 grand in expenses. So you took a 33% loss. You're 10,000 down. But the accountant doesn't want to tell you that because you want to hear you've got a profit. You want to hear everything's great. Like, isn't this great? The job's wonderful. No. You're going to go bankrupt the more you work for that client. A good accountant is going to tell you immediately, it does on the first job, it doesn't look like you're going to make money on this job. And you want to look at why. What's going on? Where's the big unexpected expense? Oh, the crew's having to walk down 100 stairs on this job, and we didn't factor that in. Then you tell the client, I just want you to know, I made a mistake. You know, we're going down 30 stairs or 100 stairs for this job, and we're going to lose 10 grand on this job. I don't want you to feel bad about it. I just want you to understand we've realized this. And what that means is any more work down in that area, we've got to add in a buffer. And you know, so just to let you know, future work will have a 40% premium because we got to make 10% profit. You know, it's not just break even. We got to be creating value. Well, then the client can say, okay, finish the job. We won't work again because I'm not willing to pay that. Okay, great. No more money losses. And you learn from that. Next time there's a situation with 100 steps, you kind of say, either I need to charge more or this isn't a good job for us. And that's okay. So this is the mentality that I find that over time can build significant equity and value in a relationship. The key is understanding that you have no way of knowing what it's like for your partner. No way of knowing. And you have only one way to find out, and that's to ask him or her to rate 1 to 10, what's the negatives, what's the positives, and then partner as friends and as people who care about a sustainable relationship, to partner to do the things that bring the most value to you as a couple, and to invest in the things that will make that easier. You love playing ping pong? It's a 10 out of 10 every time you go out and play ping pong with your friends. When you spend $400 on a ping pong table, you've now made it easier to put positives into the relationship. You love watching this genre of movie together. So buying Netflix and signing up for that and going through ahead of time and picking out 10, 20 movies you like and asking your partner which one do they like of all those 10, 20 movies in that genre. Now you've made it easy to flow towards value. And this is the way to create a sustainable relationship, particularly with the Western mind that's often very unattuned to the empathic and body language messages, because it's our left brain, our lineal, logical, verbal brain that has been so overdeveloped. So take this, create love and abundance to, build a strong base of wealth, and, blessings on your happiness.